Welcome, everybody, back to another live stream, man. It's game day, Thursday night football. Let me lower my seat a little bit. I think I'm sitting so high. It does feel like playoff vibes. Shout out to Fire Up Chips for stepping in, man. We're going to get this thing rolling right away. We got our preview. Now, look, it wasn't a short week, but it was kind of a short week because Thanksgiving happened last week. So that's why we're here on the day of the game. But it's fine. We're going to do everything we need to do. All right. We didn't slack on anything here. We got the full preview that we're going to break down, show some clips, do all those fun things. And we also have the designations already for who's going to play outside of the inactive stuff. But there's some big injury updates here. So today when we go through it, it's going to matter. We're going to start there first. Brent, I see you, Brent. How you doing? Let's jump right into it. I want to go right to these injury reports or the practice reports from this week. We'll start with the Cowboys first because there's only two players that have been listed as out. But to me, one of these is pretty significant. Okay, I'm showing the wrong screen. Hold up. Let me show the right screen. This one, show that screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so starting on the Cowboys side, the big one that's worth mentioning is Tyler Guyton's out for this game. He's their left tackle. Thomas stepped in at left tackle for him. I actually thought he played pretty well, to be honest with you. I didn't realize he was a backup. I mean, at first, just watching through it, like sometimes the backup will stand out a bit. It didn't stand out to me, so I was a little bit surprised, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's supposed to be Tyler Guyton." Until I watched another game. But for that being the case, they're not going to have their starting left tackle in this game. And again, Thomas has played well, but I do think it opens up opportunity. This is a very good offensive line to me across the board. Cooper Beebe's playing good football. Tyler Booker's playing good ball. He's a rookie, but he's playing good ball. Tyler Smith is good at left guard. At right tackle, they're in a good spot across the entire offensive line. So this does open up a little opportunity, maybe go get some one-on-one wins, which against Dak Prescott is highly valuable. Like for him, he will absolutely miss some throws, maybe make some bad decisions if he's under pressure. That's not to say that's always the case. They've actually ate up teams that have, left underneath options for him, and he's been able to just take the checkdowns and roll along. But if he's have to push the ball down the field and you can get a little bit of heat, we've seen some questionable decisions, throws, that kind of thing from Dak Prescott. And it's not all him. Sometimes the receivers just don't make plays either, but they also will make crazy plays. So that's a big one. And then also Trayvon Diggs being out for this game. I was expecting Trayvon was going to play. With him being ruled out, my assumption would be that Kalen Carson gets the start at cornerback. And we'll see him a little bit today, opposite of Deron Bland, opposite of Deron Bland. That's also noteworthy because Carson, I think, has been attacked a bit when he's put on an island, and you can get some vertical looks at him. Same thing with Bland, to be honest with you, but we know Bland will take the ball away. I thought that with Trayvon Diggs, it was a little bit concerning because I don't know that we're going to have St. Brown. He's questionable, but he didn't practice all week. He said that his ankle did hurt earlier this week. So my assumption was that Diggs was going to be back. But this is pretty big because the weakness, I would say, of their coverage unit is right down the middle. It's the linebacker position of Kenneth Murray, DeMarvion Overshown, even though they're all pretty good athletes, / their safety position. Now, I do like Donovan Wilson. He'll play everywhere for this defense. And then you have Malik Hooker, who I think you can go at a bit. But that's what I would point to is say, where's they kind of, attackable? It's right through the middle. But you put Carson in there. I like Carson. I liked him a lot out of Wake Forest. I think he came from Wake. But that said, I've seen teams go at him a bit. So I think that's going to be the case in this game is that matchup could open up for us a little bit. And it does help because he may have to get left on an island a little bit more, especially if Saint doesn't play and they try to send eyes to Jamison Williams. It would just make sense there. So maybe that's Tesla that gets that look. And I think he's going to be successful in that look. So those are the two key ones for the Cowboys. Flip it to the other side real quick, though, on the Lions side of things. I didn't pull the report up. Let me pull it up real quick. I had to restart my computer before I got on. I haven't wrote down. Let's just stay there. I wrote them down. Kirby Joseph is out for this game. I don't think this one's a huge surprise. They did say it's not really a setback for Kirby Joseph, but he's not playing. Neither is Khalif Raymond. He's still out. They did say that he was improving, but he wasn't expected to go in this game. Also, Kayode. Kayode's the interesting one because Kayode right now being injured could open the door for Tristan Colon to step in at left guard. Potentially Miles Frazier gets his first nod because Caleb right now is questionable, but he popped up on Tuesday and then yesterday had no participation dealing with a foot injury. It's not good. I know I hate that, but it could open the door for opportunity. My guess would be that Tristan Colon, if Graham plays this game, that Tristan Colon just goes to left guard, but it could open the door for Miles Frazier to get his first nod, and we'll see how it all shakes out. Now, if there's no Graham Glasgow, then it definitely opens the door for potential Miles Frazier start because Cologne would have to go to the center spot. But right now, it's looking like Graham's going to play limited all week, questionable for this game. Penei Sewell, big improvement there, limited on Wednesday. So it seems like he's trending towards playing as well. And then St. Brown again. I don't know what to make the St. Brown one. My assumption, they list him as questionable. He hasn't practiced all week. My guess is he doesn't play, but it's always hard to count out St. Brown, so I don't feel good about saying that. I mean, I want him to play, but I feel like he's not going to with 10 days off after this week, but we'll see. They need this one, so maybe he just goes out there. I mean, he plays through everything, it feels like. Brock Wright's still out, Shane's still out, and then I think we're trending the right direction with a couple of these. Taylor Decker, Brian Branch, that kind of thing. So I think those guys are going to go. All right, with that, we got to get to this preview. Let me see who's in the chat, though, real quick before we get too far into this. My man Steven's here. Did you hear about the Lions considering Frazier at left guard and Cologne to start at center? I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Now, again, it depends on Graham's health for me, because if Graham's healthy, I would start Graham. But I think Cologne had it was interesting because it's kind of a weird spot with Cologne. Cologne's played center before. I thought last week some of the things were just that he's playing really center kind of for the first time for us. Like, he hasn't gotten those reps there. And I do think there's a world which you think with more reps, he's going to look even better. There was some inconsistencies as a run blocker, but in pass pro, he did settle it in. He settled in pretty well, and he didn't look terrible. I mean, he could have easily gotten beat up on the interior, and he didn't. Now, this game is going to be a little bit of a different animal on the inside because you have a familiarity with Kenny Clark, and if the Lions just want a straight people mover, Tristan Cologne might be the better option, right? If you just want a guy that's going to push people around, you could make a case for Cologne, but Kenny Clark is super slippery, and he's going to cause you to miss blocks, regardless probably who's out there. And then you, of course, have Quinnen Williams. Now, Quinnen Williams doesn't play over the center very much with Dallas. He plays like a defensive end for them. They'll go 5-man fronts or will play outside of a guard, but he doesn't really play over the center. So I don't think either of those guys are going to have to deal with that. Whichever guy you feel more comfortable dealing with Kenny Clark consistently, and maybe a little bit of Osa Odigizua, because he's another very quick interior defensive lineman. That's pretty much where he stresses you, that you feel can deal with that. That's where I would lean. If Graham's healthy, I'd lean Graham Glasgow at least to get the start. And then at left guard, curious to see what they do. That left guard, I'm not sure what they're going to do. But I think you got two legitimate options if KO can't go that I feel good about either one. And it's kind of weird to say that with Miles, though, because, I mean, we just don't know. Huge game tonight. The Cowboys went out. Don't the Eagles have to go 4-1? No, I think the Cowboys would have to lose 2 games. I mean, not the Cowboys, Eagles. I think the Cowboys would have to go 3-2 for the Cowboys to win the NFC East. Right? If the Cowboys win out, don't the Eagles have to go 4-1? That might be right. I think I just said that just in a different way. I haven't really looked, to be honest with you. There might be another. I think it's one more loss they would have to have. I don't think 4-1 gives Dallas the division. I think they'd have to have another loss on there. I think we could check that out later, though. Unless I feel like I'm saying that weird. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. Cooper Beebe, did he turn out to be a player worried tonight and hate? Cooper Beebe's been pretty good for him. Now, I don't think he's best at getting up field up to the second level, but he's just a wall, man. He's wide, he's broad. He does a great job at the point of attack, and it fits really well with what Dallas does. We think about Tyler Booker coming out, right? People question his athleticism a bit, but he was an absolute people mover coming out of college. He's a big dude, thought gap scheme. Well, hey, with Dallas, it's some zone stuff, but it's not a lot of stretching. It's a lot of inside zone. It's a lot of outside zone, and they get on guys in a hurry. So they all kind of fit that same model, right? They all kind of play into it well. I think they lean a lot behind Tyler Smith, but it works. All those guys fit into what they're trying to do. I thought I heard Gibbs in a wide receiver position. I don't know. No, I think that's absolutely going to be a look in this game, and it should be a look in this game. Now, that said, what we're seeing in this game, and look, I would use Gibbs like our Turpin. There's going to be, I almost guarantee you, there's maybe be multiple jet handoffs, end arounds. We're going to get a good glimpse of that. And that could be to Jahmyr Gibbs. It could be to a receiver, but I assume that's going to happen probably multiple times in this game against Dallas, just because of how athletic they are at that edge position. James Houston gets some looks, Ezraku gets some looks, Dante Fowler gets some looks. They have so many athletes that play that position. And when they stack the line, a lot of times your best option is go around them, right? So whether that's a screen or some sort of, receiver usage, that could be Jahmyr Gibbs. But also in the passing game, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, I think their weakness is clearly through the middle of that defense. And they'll allow a lot of catch and run opportunities because they'll do a lot of zone coverage. And we'll see this whenever they match. You want to go underneath, right? I mean, you don't have to, but it gives you opportunity to clear out some openings. But they give up a lot of openings underneath in a lot of their zone coverages, and they have a lot of matching into it. So a lot of times there's going to be some spacing, and that's where Gibbs could go to work after the catch. I just read that. Is it best the Lions go 500 a season and Sheila fires Brad in search of a national GM and acquires an elite OC, or better to stay the course, go 9-7? So wait, you're saying go 5? Okay, so basically your thing is, would you rather go 8-9, or would you rather go 9-8? I'd rather go 9-8. I mean, if I got a big one, I'm going 9-8. No, there's no world in which I would fire Brad Holmes. There's no world I'd fire Brad Holmes. Now the OC thing will be a question at the end of the season for sure. And look, I still think there's time to salvage a lot of it because it's mainly execution. It's not like they don't have a good plan a lot of the times. They just haven't executed at all. And some of that is just straight offensive line needs to be better, but there's guys that you expect to execute that haven't been. And I think their margin of error is smaller because their offensive line isn't as good. So I think that's all fair. But that said, it's got to start clicking this week, regardless, because they won't look at it and use it as excuses. You know what I mean? Like there won't be excuses that are given because of, oh, this guy was hurt, so let's actually, it's got to execute, and Dan Campbell won't take those. Now that said, too, yeah, Brad's not going anywhere. But even from that idea, remember Sheila was the person that came in and backed these guys up when I think a lot of the fan base was pretty upset heading into year 2, and we were 1-7. She backed these guys up, and she was right. I don't think anything's happening, and I don't think anything should happen. Okay, so that said, let's jump into this preview. All right, everybody's supposed to be elite right now off the bat when they enter the league. Some go, wait, what are we talking about? Okay, I think you're talking about Tate Ratledge. I think that's what's being talked about. Oh, word on Miles Frazier. Yeah, I haven't heard anything on Miles Frazier, to be honest with you. I mean, he's available if we want to go that route, but I don't know that they're going to go that route. I'd love to see it. It's, it's different because for me, right, I was a big believer in Miles Frazier coming out of the draft. But if you just looked at it from the perspective of, okay, well, where was he drafted? It's not crazy to think that guy wouldn't become a starter, right? It's not crazy. I mean, he was a day 3 pick to be like, oh, yeah, year 1 coming off an injury. He hasn't had a training camp, basically. He hasn't really practiced. That guy at some point is going to take our position. Like, that's more of a long shot than the other way around, to be honest with you. But because I was such a Miles Frazier guy coming out of LSU, I just think he's capable of being a starter. But it's not like that guy's not going to have his bumps and bruises if you throw him in there. There's going to be some ugly. I can almost guarantee you that you're going to walk away from some plays like, yikes, what was that? It's just going to be life. It's going to be life throwing a rookie in there. I mean, anybody in this game is going to have some losses. Kenny Clark's going to give us some fits. Quinton Williams gives everybody fits, especially as a run defender so far this season. So some of this, it's kind of like last game, right? You're going to have some of it. You're going to lose some one-on-ones. How much of the things that we can control can be sound? And that's a big reason I put Graham Glasgow back at center, because I just want to settle the waters a bit. Let's be situationally sound. Let's execute. Let's get to our spots. Give ourselves a chance. Can't beat ourselves because Dallas is going to beat us a few times. They're going to get us up front. So we just can't beat ourselves, right? We have to take advantage of just doing our job to give ourselves a chance. Got to give ourselves a chance against these guys up front. Okay, so with that, there's a lot here. Okay, there's a lot here. So I'm going to try to fly through this, not make this boring, but let's start with this Cowboys offense. Now, I want to show you some of these graphics I put together just for kind of background viewing, but I'll really summarize a lot of this so we can fly through it. Yeah, so let's do that. Then we can fly through, and then we'll go to some of the clips. I don't want to go to the clips immediately. We'll get there. But let's start here with this Cowboys offense or should we start with let's start with the Cowboys defense. Okay, we're talking about the defense. Let's start there first. Let's talk about this defense a little bit. So I charted out some of their plays that they were running by down. You could see it: first down, second and short, second and medium, second long. What are they going into? What is the team doing against that? And then the results for rush plays that I saw. And these are just some of them. I just thought I'd give a kind of a physical representation of what maybe you can look at and what to expect. Big thing here, and you can see it as soon as you start with some of the rush scheme here, is you can find success through the outside zone. You see it inside zone. That's typically how we've seen this team get attacked. The biggest key, and this will come up in all the clips, is going to be Kenny Clark, right? He plays nose tackle for him. Unless they change that up this week, he's their starting nose tackle, and they talked about him as he was going to make them better against the run. He's not great against the run as a nose tackle. Now, he could be against us, and that would be a problem, but he hasn't been great. So you need to create movement against him, right? For just stability as a rushing team in this game, you have to move that guy around. You absolutely have to move that guy around because Quinton Williams won't get moved around. In some regards, you almost just want to say, hey, wherever Quinton is, just don't run towards him because he just blows things up. And I'll show you some examples. But Kenny Clark has been the most consistently moved piece. You can see a duo run, 8 yards. And I think a big reason for that is he's not really built like a true nose tackle, at least in my opinion. And when teams can just utilize, hey, man, we're just going to push him off the ball, that's how they find success. They're also not big at linebacker either. So if you can get straight downhill against these guys, like, for example, duo run, if you get a 2-deep look, you should be able to go right at Kenny Clark, and you should be able to walk these guys back to your backers. In some ways, I really like this for a guy like David Montgomery because this is typically where I look at him as he's going to give me yards. He's going to keep me on a positive track. But Jahmyr Gibbs, because of their athleticism, could be incredibly valuable because there's no doubt you're going to have some misses in the backfield, right? You're going to have some guys that are going to let people free, and at least Gibbs can kind of avoid those. But I do think this opens up again where whoever has the football, Jahmyr Gibbs, just get downhill, please. Like keep us on a positive track against these dudes. Don't let us fall behind the chains. And force him to nickel. Now, here's the thing. From what I've seen, Dallas doesn't really sway from your personnel. The only thing that they kind of wrinkle with is they'll put Marquise Bell in the game, and they'll do it in passing situations. But say you go very heavy personnel, you go 13. They might throw Marquise Bell in the game, who's kind of a linebacker, but he's also a safety out of, Florida A&M a few years ago, like an undrafted or late round pick. That's kind of their one little thing that's like, all right, this is kind of unique. And you want to run against that, I would say, but for the Lions, where they're at personnel-wise, they may struggle to get to that kind of look. So it'd be jumbo, maybe a tight end, maybe two backs on the field, something like that. But ultimately, you can see you can push those guys around a bit. Also, what's also I think stands out about this graphic is jet touch plays, end arounds. Those are absolutely, I think, going to be in play for the Lions. I completely expect there's going to be the lateral horizontal plays in this game. And just for the pure fact of, and I did this on Bleacher Report earlier this week, but it's like this. Dan Campbell brought it up during the week. You saw it at the bottom. 5-man front. What's your plan for a 5-man front? And the one thing the Lions don't really offer is the threat of a quarterback taking off. So if you put a 5-man front on the field and you're light in the box with two backers, the Lions don't really have that ability to have Goff threaten an edge to give you numbers. So it's like, now we can climb and get out. They don't really have that. Those DNs are just going to crash. So for the Lions, they need a response to that. And I think there's a couple ways, or simple ways, right? You could just say, hey, man, look, we're going to put a fullback back there. We're going to split zone block. We use a tight end. We're going to split zone block. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything because it's so athletic. I really watched Dante Fowler jump over a split zone block, which is where the tight end starts on one end, crashes down to the backside off a zone play, and hits that backside DN. And I watched him jump directly over him. It was nuts. I don't know what I just watched. Clowney also is another one of those guys. They're all athletic in that spot. So that's one option. The other thing is trying to attach something to it. And I think this is where the Lions could get creative. Attach something to it. You could obviously go like, hey, just stab it to Monty and then run it with Gibbs. Like, you could do that. If the Lions just truly want to be like smash mouth in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was Dan Campbell's mindset, like we just want to push these guys around, doesn't guarantee you'll do it, but it wouldn't surprise me. That's just who Dan Campbell is, that he says, hey, we're going to go some straight. Dave Montgomery, you're taking direct snap. We're going to put Gibbs next to you, and then you make the read, Monty, and it'll be just that simple. That's how we're going to get them out of this stuff. That wouldn't shock me from Dan Campbell. But I also think to keep Goff there, you could just attach maybe an RPO to it, right? Just a little bubble screen to it. Hold that edge rusher for a second, right? Hold him just for a second. Give him something to respect. Give him that. And then obviously that opens up all the bootlegs off of the split action too. So I think that's going to be a huge key. Lions got to have a plan for that because as soon as they go 5-man front, they get a lot of one-on-ones. And it's tough to block up, specifically if you don't have a quarterback that threatens with their legs. So Lions got to have their own little wrinkle, I think, for this game. Brad is top 3 draft. Okay, I see. What's up, Antonio? I see you in the chat. Question: how long you studied the game? Too long. Too long. Usually too long. I'm trying to speed it up, but it's usually over a few days. What up, Detroit fan report? Thursday Night Football fired up. Fired up too, dude. I'm ready for this thing. All right, let's add to this too because I want to talk about this passing attack. And again, just feel free to read around here because this is just kind of what I saw based on down and distance. The big key for me for this is that Dallas is relatively diverse. Right now, one of these teams are going to sit in one coverage all game. At least I don't think so. And typically what I like about Dallas is that they'll get out of what doesn't work. Like they came out against Philly, a lot of cover 3 early, and they were kind of getting diced up. Like the first few passes we're sitting in cover 3 and we're giving up one-on-one 10-yard completions. Like we just can't do that. And again, because Kalen Carson's probably going to be their starter, if they do that again against us, go right to it, right? Get your 10 yards, make them work one-on-one on the outside. But the big keys about what Dallas does, which makes them unique, is a lot of matching coverage. And you're seeing that across the board here. 3 match, cover 6 match, cover 4 match. And basically when I say that, I just mean their slots or their nickel defenders, whoever's covering the 2, they're going to carry it vertically. So if you put your number 2 receiver on a 3 receiver side, if you put him vertical, the number 2, that slot corner is going to carry it. Let's say change it up for us. He's going to run out the play with him. So you have that difference with Dallas. And what that opens up is everything underneath. If they're going to match any kind of zone coverage, if you throw it underneath and say your flat defender would typically be sitting underneath in a normal spot dropping zone, but because he's running vertically, now you have the flat wide open. You just check it out there and you got a lot of space to run. So they may change that up for us, but because they do that so much, it's very clearly something the Lions should look at going at, I think, in this game is when you get those looks. The other flip side to this too is there's a lot of 2-deep coverage and you see it mixed in there as well. This is kind of basic, but anytime you get with some of those Tampa 2 looks, and they'll have wrinkles out of it, right? I'll show a clip, like they'll kind of set it up where it looks like cover 3, and then they'll bail both corners, and like, all right, I can see a little wrinkle there. They'll do a little bit of that, but a lot of it you just want to attack underneath. Don't overcomplicate it. Hit your spot routes. Maybe we run some slants, get it underneath. Work to clear out that middle field, settle it down, work run after catch. It's a big reason why it's like, hey, just don't have negative run plays, because if we get to a spot where we can stay on top of the chains here and they're going to sit in these softer coverages, everything underneath is going to wear them down. And you can take those and you can work through those. And I don't think there's any issues with that. So I think that's something to also keep in mind here. And then just to add on top of it, staking up that 2-deep stuff, cover 4, cover 6. I think that because I noted earlier, I think their weakness is middle field, and I'll show some clips to make that make sense. That personnel spot of their defense, that's weirdly enough, it's where you take vertical shots. And if you remember, if we go back a few years ago, right? It was a 2 deep coverage, and I think it was cover 6. I think it was. It may have been quarters. I think it was cover 6 last time we hit the big shot to JMO. Remember against Dallas, we hit that shotgun post and we just dropped it. It was a beautiful play. That was the same kind of deal. And I still think that's going to open up. Now, maybe Dallas changed it because they saw that, but that's still something where I think if they go to those type of coverages, you have to look to get vertically. And number 2, you have to also keep in mind that their cornerbacks will be very aggressive, right? They may be responsible for that deep quarter. They're going to jump down. They're probably going to bite, especially if you're nickel and diming them. They're going to bite. So you open up vertical shots in that spot too to the sidelines. That's where I think those are going to open up double moves. The only question out of all of those is, do you get the time to execute? Well, the one that we hit the JMO didn't take long to execute because it was really a 3-step drop out of the gun, which is like a 7-step drop. Hits his back foot and he put it out. There was no post corner. It was just run a post route. We got behind the safety. It's something the Lions can get to. If they can just give themselves a chance, they're going to have shots at vertical plays in this game. And they're indoors. Everything's open for your ability to do that. Those are the keys that I really want to hit on. And then just a few wrinkles to it. Like, again, if they're going to put 5 guys on the line, run some quick screens. You're seeing a lot of short yardage stuff, a lot of stuff. It's a lot more man coverage, a little bit more of that, a little more cover 3, a lot more single high stuff, a little bit more one-on-ones could be opened up there that you can create. And you have to be ready to go at that directly. And then we'll get to some clips. Public opinion changes with the times. Brad did put this team together with good fortune, but this obviously will judge the day. All right. Well, hey, man, look, everybody has the right to their own opinion, right? I'm not off the Brad Holmes train. I'll tell you that. We should have no problem putting up points. Well, okay, so here's the concerns. Can you run the ball? That's where it always starts with the Lions. It always tends to start there. If we can't run the ball, we're typically not as good, nearly as good. Last week, we didn't run the ball well. And I say that to this point. How hard-headed are the Lions trying to run the ball? Because as mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dan Campbell came in and said, hey, man, we want to just push these guys around. And I do think there's a world in which that could work. They're smaller at D end. You expect that you should move guys around. Now, they may slip some blocks, create some negatives. Kenny Clark, I should be able to push him around. They're smaller at linebacker. So as long as we're not trying to get wide and we're letting Overshown be Edgerrin Cooper of last week and just blow things up, we can get downhill. But if they're creating too consistently of negatives and you get too many sheds, and Quinnen Williams is doing what Quinnen does every time you run to him, and teams have tried to go gap scheme at him, seal him down and kick off it, and it just doesn't happen. If it's not there, I think there's a world in which you sit back and you say, you know what, we might just have to be a passing team in this game. And how hard-headed are the Lions to say we're not going to do that? I think there's a world in which the game turns into that for the Lions, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You don't want it to be that, but there's no Micah. They have a lot of good guys up front. Ezraku's a great athlete, does good things in coverage. He's tough to throw screens at, but there's no Micah. I don't think it's a horrible idea to think at some points here, hey, we might just have to turn into more of a passing team. Because as I'm watching these guys, I'm seeing the windows they're going to give you, and I'm saying if our offensive line can just be adequate, if we can be adequate across the board, you might have to become a passing team in this game. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. So with that said, we might as well jump into some of the clips here so I can kind of make that make sense, because I don't think there's anything wrong with becoming that team in this game. And I'll show you why. Let me skip ahead a little bit. Let's go to this Dallas defense so you can see what I mean. We'll show a couple run plays. I didn't put many in here, so we're quickly through this just to give you an idea. So this is what I mean. You see the guy getting pushed off the ball by the center and the right guard? That's Kenny Clark. We'll get used to seeing him here, okay? We are all familiar with his ability to get after the quarterback, but we're also seeing that he can be moved. And you see that right here, and that's how you get downhill, and I expect the Lions to try to do that. Now, you see number 92, he's a problem. That's Quinnen Williams, who they traded for. There's also James Houston standing next to him at the bottom of the screen. Quinnen blows things up. This is a gap scheme. They're trying to down block and get around him, and they're trying to go right at a smaller defensive end. Well, Quinnen doesn't let that happen, all right? This thing doesn't even get set up on a counter play. Not at all. It doesn't set up at all in this play, and he does that all kind of by himself. Again, outside zones, inside zones, you go right at Clark. You can find lanes. You can find ways to push them around. It doesn't mean there won't be negatives, right? Because there's a balance of like how much do we stick to this? Because you can see here the shed by Quinnen Williams again forces the cutback lane. But this is the key that the Lions will have to figure out. So this is a 5-man front by Dallas, and notice that backside end. So there's no split zone attached, but what they do attach, they attach a run pass option. You see that screen at the top? The Lions are going to have to find something that they can attach to these, because as they zone block away from this, and on top of it, which makes it even worse, is Quinnen Williams destroys his block. So if they pick up this block, there's a chance for this to really pop, right? Center climbs up to the backer, we're running. But he doesn't, because Quinnen blows it up. So now you're looking backside. So if he's going to cut back and that edge rusher has no respect for Goff taking off, which he won't, this thing goes nowhere. This play goes nowhere. But with Mahomes, he holds it out, and he gets that edge to believe that there's something there. And in this case, it's that run pass option pass. He doesn't even have to do that. And they may come into this game and say, dude, just put your ears back and go. I don't care if you respect that run pass option, just go. And that's where the Lions will have to find their wrinkle. Whether that's a motion, some sort of backside block, something to give them attention, something to give them to respect. Because if not, it's going to be all down to can you create front side movement. If you don't, you're not going to go anywhere on these run plays because I don't think they're going to hang back at all. I don't think those guys are going to give us any respect. Too deep coverage. This is that cover 4 look. This is where they're soft in the middle of the field, and this is where I would be looking to attack. We've seen teams let it out there. This time the ball comes out really late, but you're noticing they're underneath the defenders are pretty shallow, and that second level is open to attack the safety. That's Devontae Smith running over the middle of the field. That's where you have to go. He goes really late here, but you could see that it was opened up. Staying to that, again, they're going to bail out their cornerback in this spot. Now they're going Tampa 2, and you can see where they're soft. Now this is just typical with the Tampa 2 to be soft here, but linebacker, see how aggressively he bails to get out the middle of the field. Take the check down. The other option is what Jalen Hurts does is take the shot. And again, these two deep things, you can do this. You can try to isolate these safeties. There's nothing wrong with trying to isolate these safeties against these guys because I think against guys like Hooker, you can find success. This is an awful ball, but you can also take that check down and stay ahead of the chains and you're good to go. Staying on that side, let's now go to one of their cover 3 looks. See their slot corners? They're matching it, right? They're going to match things. So he's going to carry it vertically. What does that do? Well, there's no underneath defender. The running back's uncovered. So this is going to open up if they stay true to who they are. Right? You see how open Saquon is? That guy's going to carry vertically if they stay true to who they are. And last time we played Dallas, they were the same team. They were the same team we played Dallas last time too. So I don't expect much of this to really look different. And then this is what Philly did early. They came out and they said, hey, look, you guys want to play cover 3? That's awesome. That's great. We're just going to take our one-on-ones. And in this case, at the bottom, that's Kalen Carson. We're going right at him. Going right at him one-on-one. We're not going to play around with this. You know, we don't need to do anything special. If you can't, you got to get out of this because we're just going to beat you up one-on-one. And then again, here, top of the screen, same idea. We're one-on-one. All right, we're just going to beat you up. We're going to win our one-on-one skinny post touchdown. Can the Lions find those? That'll be a question, too, is they may challenge us and say, I don't know if you could find those because this is the kind of coverage that we see, and I never really have doubts that we can attack these things. Anytime a team goes too deep and they're going to leave the middle like this, that second-level throw that Mahomes doesn't make, which he's done a lot this year. People don't ever see it, but he does this a lot. He just doesn't throw the ball for some reason, and he throws it to the ground. Dallas may come into this game and saying, like, we know you can do that. We're going to make you find your wins one-on-one on the outside. Prove that you can do that first. Prove that you can get your one-on-one wins on the outside first, just like this. And if we can do that, we might get them to those coverages where the middle field now starts to be our friend. And when they occasionally go, man, again, you want to isolate their safeties. You want to get their safeties on an island. There's not really any two-man that I noticed, so safety is going to come down and pick it up. You want to isolate that. Now let's flip it to the other side. Defense has to play a good game. They're gonna have their hands full. Right? They're gonna have their hands full. Hopefully, just a couple key plays. I think that's the best you can hope for is that they make some big stops for us and just big moments for us, get us off the field. Because really, for Kansas City, I mean, Dallas wasn't doing anything on early downs. They just gave up every single 3rd and long possible. It was crazy to watch. It was every single 3rd and long turned into a first down for Dallas, which was crazy. I don't know what Kansas City. How they let that happen, but they did over and over. And typically it was just Dak would make a good decision. He'd check it down. He'd just run after the catch and be a first down. It's crazy to watch, but you know, we just can't allow that to happen. And that's unfortunately, that's been an issue for us this year is we haven't been consistent at stopping teams on 3rd down. And if we are that way again, we are going to be in trouble. We just need a couple of them. Give us a couple of key stops here. Let's talk about this Cowboys offense because, you know, again, they bring a lot of familiar things with what we've seen. You know, a lot of double routes on the same side, double slants. They love their slants, double slants. They want to get George Pickens isolated on the outside. Anytime you play man, it's probably going to Pickens. That's why I brought up the 2-man stuff so I can give help over top, be aggressive with him because it's probably going to Pickens if you play some sort of 2-man or cover 1 blitz. That's probably where he's looking at deep curl route, things like that. So you're going to get that. Whenever you go zone, you're going to get more flood looks, flood levels. You're going to try to overload. And I think the best element to a Dallas defense, and partly you could potentially give them problems here, is that they'll run like one side of the field will have a zone beater, one side will have a man beater. And Prescott has always been a guy that's played really fast through his progressions. By the time he's on that back foot, he's already to his 2nd and 3rd read. Like he does that consistently. And I think that's his superpower, I think, as a quarterback. And then he'll give his guys chances too, which is another big part of that. But that's what makes them, I think, so tough to deal with. You could look at some combination stuff here where it's like, hey, one side we're playing zone, one side we're playing man. Look at some combination looks here. I think that's on the board. We rarely ever do it. We would do it against Fields back in the day, but we don't really ever do it. I think against Dallas, it's something to consider, especially if you can kind of guess on it correctly. You could give them problems at trying to set those things up. Go into this. Hold up. All right, let's get into this. Let's get right to some of these clips. That way it can make sense. Even if slow up the run, Dak will have all day to throw against our secondary. Yeah, well, I mean, look, so here's how I've talked about it all week, and this is kind of the way that I'd still approach it. Number one, I'd put Brian Branch on Lamb as much as possible, like as many times as possible. That would be a matchup I'd try to get. Just like last week when Watson, if you're ever going single high, even the problem is Kirby's not here, so you can't really be like, hey, just play him in the slot. You can't really do that. But anytime you go single high, I'd put Branch immediately on CeeDee Lamb, and that'd be my one-on-one. And I'd actually feel pretty good about that. I feel like Pickens is their number one this season. So that'd be my first thing. And they've left some things out there trying to get to Lamb, but they like to get to Lamb vertically. And I'd put Branch on that matchup, and I'd let him run with him. As for Pickens, I want to cheat there. So if I'm in man, I want to cheat my safety if it's single high. If it's two man, great. But that's obviously where you want to cheat if you can give some help to Pickens and let everybody else try to beat you one-on-one. And like I said, because that, you're probably going to get a lot of Kevontae Turpin on Amik Robertson, which is okay. I think that's a fine matchup. Turpin is just dangerous as soon as the ball gets in his hands. Kick return, run after catch underneath. Like he's dangerous immediately as soon as he touches the ball. Single high without Kirby. Now, here's the thing, though. I'm doing that probably less in zone, right? That's where Harper got us last week. Harper got us in zone coverage doing that. And some of those were good throws. Like the one that Love made up the seam. I'll give him credit watching it back. That's a good throw. But some of that was more single high. Like Brian Branch should not have dropped off his route. Yes, you get more with Kirby and taking the ball away there, and it's more dangerous. But at the same time, you were in a place to make a play on the ball, and you just didn't. And early in that game, Thomas Harper did fine. He did a fine job, right? He was in single high, and he did a good job, and they threw incomplete passes against man single high coverage. He was throwing the ball at the ground because he didn't have anything open because Harper did do a good job jumping on some routes. But he does stress your DBs more, but this might be a game where you have to do that. You might have to stress that because that's who you are. This is what your strength is, and that's how you get them to hold on to the football. I'm going to jump right to clips here, and then we'll go to some of the notes. Let's start with this rushing attack for Dallas because actually, I'll show this real quick. That way I can give a little background. Dallas, like I said, is very downhill. Everything they do is pretty downhill. And you're going to see it here. Everything they do is pretty downhill. Outside zone, inside zone. That's kind of who they are. Lead runs. They'll utilize Hunter Lepke as kind of their lead blocker. You have to deal with that. I think this is a huge Jack Campbell game. Right, Jack Campbell cannot be taking on blocks and getting pushed out of his spot. Campbell's going to have to play through blocks and make stops. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's the world he's probably going to have to live in because they are too powerful at the point of attack for him not to be great. Because if he's not great, we're gonna have an issue. So Jack Campbell needs to be great in this game. Everything's too downhill for him. Inside zone, outside zone, inside lead, all that stuff. You know, there's some things that they'll do off it. We see the wham will pop in there, but for the most part, that's what it is. They'll utilize Hunter Lepke a lot. They're also a very heavy personnel type of team, so you may see a lot of Derek Barnes, and I assume the Lions will be okay with that. And that'll put Branch in coverage, which works out fine. But they're pretty heavy, 21, 22. They're very heavy in what they do, and a big part of this is going to be Ferguson. Ferguson is a great contested pass catcher. He also is a pretty darn good lead blocker for them as well. So we're going to have to handle that. Our linebackers are going to have to be amazing in this game. All right, that takes me to the clip so we can see what we're looking at here with some of this rushing for him. And immediately we get to some of this downhill stuff. Downhill, lead block. This is Hunter Lepke leading the way. Tight end, same thing here. Springboards this big 40-yard run. And you can see right here, a linebacker takes on Lepke. That's Bolton, who's a very good linebacker, but he doesn't get off his block. So he just takes it on one-on-one, and it pops for a massive run. Nobody gets over their block. Also, this is a poor attempt by the safety that lets it turn into this. And they got juice. They got guys that if they get the seam or if they get a lane, they're going to go. It's going to pop. So we can't let that happen. And you have to wrap up because outside of Javonte, they have a lot of home run hitters. With Javonte, he may not be a home run hitter, but man, you got to wrap this dude up. You just throw your shoulder like we sometimes get lazy and do. They're going to pop off some of these runs. He's going to get 7-8 yards just running through our guys, and that can't happen. And you can see this is what they do, man. They're very tough at the point of attack. They're very strong. Here it's behind Tyler Smith. I think that's where they're typically going to lead. Again, you're going to have that lead block by Lepke that steps in. You have BB kind of sealing down his block. Then, bam, he's going to bounce off a safety. He's going to pick up 8 yards on a play like that. Let's stay with this rushing attack here again behind Tyler Smith. I think most of the time that's where they want to get is behind Tyler Smith. Here's a little bit of gap scheme, which we'll get into. They have their tight end. You have to beat up Jalen Ferguson or their Jake Ferguson in this game. Like, we can't have our defensive ends or Derek Barnes in this case getting sealed out of plays. Bro, you got to run him over. You got to run this dude over, and you got to force this thing back inside. You can't let these running backs get more than that because already you're going to have to deal with taking on blocks and getting off them. Now, the benefit that you have, they're not insanely athletic up front. I don't believe so. So you can't have opportunities like this where Cooper Beebe doesn't get up and actually pick up the linebacker. So it's pretty slow. Or not Beebe, I'm sorry. This is Tyler Guyton in the spot. It's a little bit slower, but like you can scrape over some of these blocks. And even if they push them out of the field, out of their lane, they still should be climbing on this play, and they're not climbing on this play. So because of that, you can have guys scrape across and make plays. You do have a potential athleticism advantage that specifically Alex can tap into if Jack Campbell can handle his own at the point of attack. Real quick, there's an update here from Adam Schefter that says Sam Brown did not make it to practice week due to his ankle. And a return next week was considered a more realistic expectation. But the team also knows saying is one of the toughest players. Okay, that's not really an update. Whatever. They say that's not really an update. Okay, that's just is what it is. All right, let's stay now to their passing attack. We see what they're trying to do, and this is where again Dak to me has always been really good. You're seeing him drop back here, and he gets through multiple guys very quickly. Very quickly, he's through reads, and you're going to see some of this underneath stuff, kind of some of their spacing hitches across the board, and then he gets it out to the flat here. I really like some of the quarters coverage that teams run against this team. The danger, obviously, is their quick passing concepts will open up. I like some of the cover 4 blitzing, too. I think the biggest key is you have to find a way to make Dak do this, play off his back foot. Here, they're doing it with a 4-man rush. Now, the downside is this is where they absolutely smoked the Chiefs. Everything was a check down underneath, and they just had guys running free underneath. And when you do that, they're giving up 10 to plus yard chunks, and they did it all game long. And it was an absolute problem. Here they're matching up defensively a little bit, and Kansas City kind of does what Dallas does. Slot matches up. He's carrying that slant. Flat's wide open. He just has to get it there, and they're taking off. So let's maybe not match coverage against these guys. I get it because a lot of it's vertical, so some teams will want to do it. Let's probably stay away from doing that. I would say in this game, let's not do that. That'd be my argument, because that's not going to be helpful for you in any way because you're just going to give those checkdowns, which they feasted on last game. And then here, as you go kind of cover zero, you have one underneath defender. They're going to try to get it to Pickens. And any way possible, he wants to get that ball to George Pickens. So whoever has that matchup, that's probably going to be a lot of Rocky Sin, maybe a little bit of Meek. They may put him in there and then, figure something else out for a nickel because they're so heavy. They may just put a Meek out there. That's fine with me too. But that's going to be obviously the most challenging matchup we have to deal with. And then he will throw some picks. And he threw the first pick against Kansas City in cover 6 where he just had some pressure and he forced it downfield. The biggest thing for Dak is if he has pressure and he can go underneath, you have to find a way to get to that quickly, like this. Philly quickly gets to this. It's kind of strung out because that defensive end held up that back, and because he strings it out, now everybody else can rally to the ball, and it turns into a 1-yard gain. The problem Kansas City had is that they weren't stringing anything out. It was just getting to the flat, and it was 15 yards. You either have to have a guy that's assigned underneath to take that away. And I would think about it as, hey, man, look, we're playing cover 4, but somebody is going to assign to that running back. We've done that in the past with Alex, where instead of Alex is dropping in his zone, he would just take away the running back. So you might lose some help underneath, but you take that back away. That's going to be the key. If you're getting pressure and he can get to an underneath pass, you're torched. If he's getting pressure and he has to go downfield, now you might take the ball away. And that was the complete difference here from Dak Prescott, is trying to push the ball downfield when there was some pressure. And we'll see here again, 2 deep coverage, cover 4 again here. And in this case, pushing the ball downfield a bit here, not any pressure, and he hit this levels concept, and they clear it out for CeeDee Lamb. That's kind of what they do. They do a lot of overloading stuff, floods, levels. A lot of kind of their pass concepts are based on that. And then again, you'll get some maybe double slants against man, and you'll have this on both sides here. You get a curl flat, so we can beat zone coverage. On the backside, we'll run a double slant if we get man coverage. They get zone here, so he quickly hits the curl flat, and we just have to break on the ball in a hurry. In that case, I think he missed a tackle, and it turned into a first down. We can't be doing that if we're going to play that kind of coverage. Everything's going to be top down, so you got to make tackles to force them to try to push the ball. But Ferguson is a problem. I'm going to remind you, Ferguson's a problem, and anytime they get into the red zone, they're trying to get to Ferguson. He had a play, I don't know which game it was. He had a play where he caught a flat, and it was a 12-yard gain, and he got hit with 1 yard. He gained 1 yard and got hit, and he turned it into a 12-yard gain, picked up the first down, and took the ball to the 1. It was disgusting. He ran through like 3 defenders. He's a problem in the red zone. There's one guy to focus on in the red zone. It's him. And Dak does a great job in those spots. Like I said, giving guys a chance. He'll let you box people out, and he'll just put it up for grabs, and he'll say, here's your one-on-one. He does a great job there. So you got to win at the point of attack, number one. We got to have guys jarring the ball loose in there. And if you're in some of that coverage, you might have a problem because they're going to say, hey, Lions, you want to play soft there? Great. We're going to put Thomas Harper. We're going to get Thomas Harper on the tight end. We're going to allow him to box him out. That's going to be a problem, right? That's going to be an issue. So you're probably going to have to hurry him up. That way, that's not something they could just sit back and throw, because if you allow him to sit back and throw, we might have a problem inside the 20-yard line. Like, we might just get a bad matchup, and he's just going to give a guy a chance. We might have an issue there. You might have to hurry him up once he gets inside the 20 just to try to force it to a specific read very quickly rather than allowing to actually see some of those openings. Okay, That said, I think that's most of the stuff that I wanted to hit on here. There's a couple other things. I'll leave this on the screen real quick. Over to what they do offensively. Floods, smashing concepts, dagger concepts, a lot of the kind of typical stuff you're typically used to seeing. But a lot of it's just overloading stuff is probably the biggest thing for me on early downs is them trying to overload some of those openings. And then on third down, maybe some of their mesh concepts, man beaters, what they'll get into specifically. And a lot of times it's going to be George Pickens who's going to be their man beater. And Turpin's going to do a lot of things after the catch. It's time for Hush to have a big game. It'd be nice to have a big game in this game. Because if we can win before, we're going to be a problem. I've said this through the week. I'd like to keep Aleem on the interior. The biggest problem with that is they're so downhill that if you don't get upfield, they may push us around a little bit. We don't want that to happen. It's going to stress Campbell, but I think you allow Aleem to play inside. I think you allow Aleem to play inside. And you say, hey, be disruptive, get upfield for us. DJ Reader needs to be great because whoever's playing nose tackle, Reader or Lopez, maybe the biggest stress of the game, they're going to get a lot of double teams and they're going to have to deal with a lot of size. Whether that's Booker and Cooper or that's Cooper and Tyler Smith, they're immediately going to have a lot of size in their lap. So just pause on that, but just hold your ground a little bit. They're going to be massive keys. If they can hold their ground a little bit, we're going to have a chance because that'll allow Jack Campbell and Alex to scrape because they'll be slowed down, and we can do that, and we can shut down that run a bit. We won't get pushed around, and then you can allow Lee McNeil to stay over those guards and find maybe their biggest weak point, which is good guard play, maybe not the most athletic. Lee McNeil needs to be a disruptor, and he was such a disruptor on Thursday. I think you have to lean into that as your best matchup. That's our matchup. Let Hutch live on the outside. Let him try to get some wins on a backup left tackle or a right tackle like he typically does. And Lee McNeil's got to be a dog in the interior, and you got to just let him play upfield in this game. You got to let him play upfield, and then your nose tackle is going to be stressed because of that. And I think that's okay. We got the nose tackles, I think, on paper to deal with that. So there's a path for success. If those guys all play their best games, there's a path to making it work. Is it going to be the same interior O-line, or are they going to change besides Sewell? Look, my guess, well, the only question is KO, if KO plays. If KO doesn't play, my guess is they go Cologne at left guard. Maybe we see Miles. My guess is they'll just go Cologne. And I think if Graham plays, he's going to center. I don't think that's going to change. Maybe it does, but I don't think that's going to change. I think Graham coming back, they'll just put him back at center. And then, again, it'll just be what happens with KO. Sewell, it's questionable whether or not he's going to play. I tend to think he's going to play, being improved yesterday. I think he's going to play. If he doesn't play, that shakes up a lot because then Skipper's going to have to step in. But I don't think anything's going to change there. I think for the most part, it's going to look pretty similar. And I think both our tackles are going to play, which is going to be very important. I do like the lead runs again, like we did last week. I think that's fine. But again, they're going to match personnel for personnel. They're pretty darn fast. So again, we just have to give them something on the backside to respect. It's going to be a key. I expect a lot of receiver runs getting involved again, just because the fact that their DNs are so athletic upfield. A lot of times, the best way to go at them is just go around them, right? Don't let them actually play their game. Just try to go around them, and you'll find some success there. Why don't we stand up Hutch on obvious pass downs? What would be the benefit? Like, are you saying like to stand him up over the center, or are you just saying stand him up in general? I mean, I think a lot of times that's just personal preference. The best benefit I think you can get for Hutch is putting him on the interior. If you're saying that, if you mean that, because in that case, you can start to eliminate some of those chips for him. That's probably the best thing that you could do, because a lot of times he's just getting out there and he's always going to get extra hands on him. So if you can get him on the inside and it's a very obvious passing down, you may have a benefit. And then in that case, I can go with you, because now all of a sudden you're probably going to get you're going to force a one-on-one with either Aleem, or it's going to be a forced one-on-one with Hutch on the inside. And you absolutely should win that. The challenge is getting them to those spots, because they do a nice job, I think, of not getting into a lot of negatives, because they can play so fast and they get to so many quick concepts underneath. From that perspective, I'm with you. I think when you're out wide, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of just more, preference again. He can play with his hand in dirt. If that helps us get off, that's fine. Regardless, so he's going to get someone that's going to throw an extra body. They're going to chip him. They're going to put a slot out there to kind of squeeze him inside. They're going to bring a running back to give him support. Somehow, some way, they're going to give him support there. You put him on the inside, you may have to have a focus on, we got to get two hands on this guy. And if that's the case, Lee McNeil should open up for one-on-ones, and that's where you're going to have to be dominant. Then the question becomes, can he get wins on the outside? I would say with Davenport, you should be able to. You should be able to have him go to work against their left tackle a bit, maybe have Muhammad work on that right tackle. And again, what Dak does is, if he's under pressure, if you can get them behind the chains and he's under pressure, he's going to make some bad decisions, as long as we can take away that quick flat form, which is why, again, I'm cool with being aggressive, because he'll also maybe miss some throws. It's not even just making a bad decision. He also just may miss a throw more often than not vertically than underneath. Underneath, he's not going to miss a check down if he's under pressure, but he will miss some vertical passes, and that just may lead to some straight incomplete passes for you, which would be the best benefit. So maybe don't do any matching things. I'm not with doing any matching things defensively for you. I wouldn't look into that as going to be successful for them, so I just stay out of that. Hutch has always said he prefers standing up, but he hasn't at all this year. Yeah, again, I think that's more so preference. It's different when you're in an obvious passing down. You can kind of play it however you want to. I don't think they really would care. If you put his if you have it on earlier down, there can be some advantages and disadvantages because a lot of times guys like people having their hands in dirt because it's immediate leverage. So anytime you're playing an alignment that's not wide, they want immediate leverage when they get their hands on them. But again, if you're playing incredibly wide, don't think there's much of an advantage to that. Really, that kind of comes into play outside of if they're seeing a difference in how fast he's actually getting off the line. I don't think there's much of an advantage there. I don't think they're going to be like, Hutch, you can't stand up because we just don't like it when you're out wide in a pass rush down. Like I would doubt that they would care that much, to be honest with you, because there's nothing that really changes. He's probably going to be rushing the passer, and he probably should be rushing the passer. So unless it makes him more of a target for chip blocks and they feel like they can eliminate some of those, that would be the only thing. It would have to be minuscule things that they're trying to eliminate. And I would doubt that they're going to tell Hutch he can't do something like that if that's what he loves to do. That said, though, Hutch has done a really good job this season at still getting a lot of pressure. We just have to keep the ball in their hands a little bit. And last week, Green Bay had the plan of we're not going to let Love hold the ball to give you sacks, so that's fine. And he also had a couple of big losses in there. I don't want to say big loss, but he had a couple of occasions where he got one-on-one. He didn't win against Zach Tom, and that just was what it was. Zach Tom's really darn good. So I'll give him his props for that. Zach Tom's been pretty awesome. And it seems like for whatever reason, some of those smaller guys can give Hutch a handful because they get in his chest and they can slow him down. And they're athletic, right? Hutch is a very, very agile defensive end, which makes him so unique. But if you have a guy that matches up pretty well with that, you could slow him down. If you have a guy that's a little bit slower, Hutch is probably going to give them a handful because he's going to work inside, outside. Zach Tom's a little bit harder to deal with that. You kind of got to maul that dude over, and he's already very leveraged. He's got a weird build to him. Zach Tom's pretty darn good. Here's what I'm going to say. Knowing what we know now, I don't think St. Brown's going to play in this game. I'm going to go to score predictions. So, chat, I need you to flood the chat with some score predictions. Give me your score for this game. I think it's going to be a lot of scoring. I hope the defense comes through in some big spots for them. Hopefully they can, but I'm not banking on them slowing them down a ton. I think we should score a lot. We should get some verticals passes in this game. Always comes down to how much can we eliminate falling behind the chains, because I think they're really good when you're in third and long. I think Dallas has shown that they're very good in third and long defensively, so I don't think that it's going to be a good world to live in. I think they're pretty good there. They're trying to think who I would compare them to that plays like that. I mean, I guess Green Bay does a little bit, but we picked up some third and longs against them. Just stay in front of the chains a bit. We should find explosives. I think in the passing game, run for catch, there's going to be explosives on easy things. Don't overcomplicate it. You're going to find explosives. Just get the ball in their hands and let them run a little bit. In the run game, just stay downhill, stay downhill, stay downhill. But I think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I think the Lions got to put up reasonably. You have to come with the expectation that we got to score 30. I think that's reasonable. You got to think you're going to have to score 30 in this game. I think that's got to be the mindset, and it's going to lead to some aggression for Dan Campbell. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully we slow them more down than that, but I think that's got to be the mindset. I'm feeling good today. So my score predictions, it's feeling pretty good today. Okay, so I'm gonna when I get to it, for good, we'll see. You think I should put Isaac Tesla at my flex spot with St. Brown and Raymond being hurt this week? I'm trying to think. I mean, if you have Gibbs and feed Gibbs, I would say this. I think it's at a point now, and I don't know if it's as much matchup specific as it is just in general. We were saying this after last game. Tesla should have games now where he's getting 7 targets. Like it shouldn't be he's getting 3 targets. He should have some 7 target games. Now there's going to be some games where he doesn't get the ball, but I don't think Dallas has that guy. I don't think they have that guy that can take him out of the game, and I think Bland's going to see a lot of JMO. So I think realistically, he's going to see a lot of Carson, and that should be a big advantage for him. He should make grabs, and he should get vertical. I think roll with Tesla. Tesla's going to have a game where he gets 7 targets. It's going to happen, 6+. It's going to happen, and it wouldn't shock me at all if it was this week just because we're at health-wise and because I'm with you. I don't think Saint's going to play. Could be wrong. I don't think he's going to play, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there. So, go for it. Play Tesla. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Play Tesla. Go for it. Nothing wrong with that. And I think there's going to be a game where he's going to get a lot of looks, and it could start this week. I see your scores. I think we have to have the mindset of 30, and I think we can score 30 against these guys as long as we can eliminate some of our own mistakes. And I think our defense is going to shock us a bit. I think occasionally they're going to make some big plays. Their biggest challenge is going to be red zone. They need to come through on third down. I know when they get in the red zone, we're going to struggle to get them off the field. We're going to struggle to force them to kick field goals in this game if they get into inside the 20 against us. I just think they have a lot of good matchups. It's going to be a lot to deal with, and they can run the ball downhill. So there's not a great To me, there's not a great answer for that, right? Like I don't know. I just don't. I don't think we're going to be great in red zone spots. So hopefully we can just keep getting them to red zone spots. And I think as soon as they start to get close, you have to say we're going to get really aggressive and try to get them out of there because you have to have the mindset of as soon as they get close to red zone, we have to get them off the field because once they get inside the 20, they're probably putting up a touchdown. It's not a good mindset. It's not a good plan, but I think that's just realistic against these guys. Is that's going to happen. So you got to keep them from getting to that spot. I think we put up 31. I think we can put up 30. I'm gonna give us 31. Obviously, we have to play clean. I think we're gonna put up 30. I'm gonna go 31 for us. The challenge is on the other side because again, they're gonna make every field goal they take. They have that dude. He's indoors. He's gonna make everything. So you're not gonna get missed field goals. And if they get into the red zone, they're gonna score touchdowns. So they should put up a lot of points against us, which is challenging. I'm gonna buy into our third down defense comes through. Right, I'm gonna say they come through. I'm gonna say Dallas puts up 26. I think they maybe tack on a late field goal there. Kind of in that 23, 26 world. They could score a lot more than that. They're very capable. But I think that we're going to come through on third down. We're going to struggle in the red zone. So if they get in there, don't expect to stop because I don't think we're going to get one. But we're going to keep them out of that because we're going to get some stops on third down. So I'll go 26-31. I was at 23. I'm feeling pretty good today, but I'm going to go 26 right now and kind of leave it there. Do we know who's playing at left guard? No. At least I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be if KO can go, KO will probably play. If KO can't go, I assume they'll go Tristan Colon. I would love to see Miles Frazier, but I warn everybody, as much as I like Miles Frazier, and I believe he's capable of being a starter, it's not going to be perfect if he starts, okay? Just keep that in mind. I know you all probably understand that, but I'm just making it, because I'm reminding myself really out loud. If he starts, he's going to have some very ugly reps in there. He's going to have some very ugly reps. I think the biggest challenge about playing Miles over everything, though, isn't that the fact that he could lose some because he's going to lose some, KO's going to lose some, or Cologne would lose some. They're all going to lose reps in there. Graham's going to lose some. But it's going to be the challenge of how confident are you that putting Miles in there, he's not going to have blown assignments. That's the biggest thing that you have to ask yourself. Because if we have blown assignments, we're going to beat ourselves again, and we have to avoid that at all costs. Miles is not going to shut people down in this game. I just don't see him shutting guys down. I don't see KO doing it. I don't think Cologne's going to do it. But who do you feel confident in terms of not going to have missed assignments in the run game? And also on top of that, in the pass game too, when we talk about some movement up front, that we can kind of calm that a bit. If we're confident Frazier can do that, give him the look. If we're not right now, don't start him. Because we need to settle that in first and foremost. At some point, we have to settle that in because that's the biggest, I think, challenge our O-line is going through. So I think that's how they'll look at it. But I'd love to see Miles get the look because I think what Miles has is he's capable of being our best player one-on-one. But to me, that's not the biggest challenge today. The biggest challenge is making sure that he's assignment sound, whoever that is. And they feel like he can be, then go with him. How many times is Goff getting sacked in this game? I say 3. To me, unless he's forcing things vertically, I don't think he should get sacked a lot. I really don't. Like, they don't have a Micah. I don't think he should get sacked a lot in this game unless he's forcing things over top. I'll say he gets sacked once. I don't think he's going to get sacked a lot. But if he does, then, yeah, we got a problem. I don't think he's going to get sacked a lot. With Goff as quarterback, we can't. And we've had it from the back position, too. Put Monty in there on third down. Let Monty be your pass protector. Let's be clean. This is why Monty's here. We expect this. Be clean. All right? Be clean because we're going to blitz us. And that's one thing with Dallas to expect is Dallas is not going to hold back. They're going to zone blitz, and they'll zone blitz a lot. Get the ball out of your hands. They're going to zone blitz us. We need a running back that can pick that up. Let Gibbs live in the slot in this game is what I would do. Put him on a lot of routes. Let him beat the middle of the field up, and let Monty sit back there as your pass protector. Do a lot of 2-back sets. Force them to put an extra backer on the field because they'll typically match your personnel. So if you go a lot of 2-back, you're going to get that. Go a lot of 2 running back sets. It doesn't mean have them both in the backfield. It just means have a lot of 2 running back sets is how I would be looking at it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Okay, we got through it. We got a game tonight, Thursday Night Football. So tune back in. We'll be live. We'll react to it. We do have our Bleacher Report post-game, and I'll probably try to simultaneously do that live here too. Should the Lions live in jumbo? I don't think there's anything wrong with living in jumbo against these guys. I don't think there's anything wrong with it because the benefit would be if they go a 5-man front, cool, we got a 6th offensive lineman. And they're small at defensive end. So as long as Skipper can get some hands on guys, we should be able to create some lanes. Can he do that? I don't know, but he should be able to. I mean, he should. He should be able to help us create some lanes and slow down those DNs a bit. So I think so too. And I think in saying that, 2 running backs is a nickel defensive matchup. It can be. They can go that way. But putting a tight end or an offensive line, that would put you in a spot where you have to go base. Most teams feel like they have to go base personnel, and I think the Lions should try to do that. And an extra offensive lineman may make them more apt to saying, hey, we're actually putting a linebacker out here and not just putting Marquise Bell on the field. they may be more apt to say we have to get heavier than that because Bell is not a good matchup. Bell's not a good matchup with a 6 offensive lineman and 2 running backs. So I'm with you. Jumbo, 2 backs. I do it a lot. Send Goff Jamaica so he can learn how to run. Look, man, Goff had some scoot last week now. All right. He had like a 20-yard scramble. Okay. Goff got it going last week. All right. He got it going. And that was the coverage we're going to see today. That was coverage 6, and he got out of there. First play JMO TD. It'd be amazing. I mean, we could use a fast start. We could use it. At some point it would be helpful to get out. It's helpful to get out and run on one of these guys. I'm just saying this. Biggest thing for me, don't get hard-headed. I think we come out hard-headed, and that's fine. Come out with the mindset we're punching these dudes in the mouth. We're going multiple backs. We're going extra alignment. We're going 2 back sets. We're going to run the football. We're going to get downhill. We're going to bang our head against the wall. When you get into the second half, if it has too many inconsistent first down runs, become a passing team. You may not want to. Do it. Just do it. Become a passing team. They're going to blitz you. That's fine. Become a passing team. Put Gibbs in the slot. Your check down option can come from the slot. Become a passing team because you're going to have ways to create explosives there. I think it's much more likely that you may create explosives in the pass game than the run game. So do that. Become a passing team. Don't be hard-headed in this one. Find a way at all means, by any means, to win the game. Be willing to be that team. All right? That's where I'm at. So I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate y'all joining. Hopefully I see you back tonight. We'll try to do a little early pregame, but we'll see how fast I can get back because I got to leave here soon. This is going to be wild to say, but shouldn't we draw plays for Goff to start running? I mean, look, I would say no because outside of like the 2-yard line, like I would have no issue when we get to the 1 to say, hey, Goff, pull it down. Like if we, like in this game, right, we get to, okay, let's go outside the box. Let's go crazy for a second. Let's say it's a 4th down and 1, right? Let's say it's a 4th down and 1. Let's say it's a 3rd down and run, not 4th down and 1. I don't like that. Let's say it's 3rd down and 1. And we come out in the gun, right? We spread them out. That wouldn't be the worst idea to say, hey, Goff, pull it down. If he dives and he's just closing his eyes and he's rushing to the running back, pull it down to get us a yard and slide. That I'm okay with. Outside of that, no, I don't think you can. Because it's not even just like, could we have a lane that gets there where Goff could kick a few yards? I think you could schematically find that. It's just all the dangers that come with it. Goff, I don't think is overly comfortable when he has someone near him running the ball. So you're fearing the fact that he may fumble trying to do way too much, and it's just not his comfort. Now, look, he looked comfortable running last week, but it parted for him so he could take off. I don't think you want to put him in a lot of design spots because you're going to open up that door where Goff gets a little bit panicky probably, right? And he gets someone around him and he just does not hold the ball well. And he's thinking about everything else. His mind's probably racing. Where do I need to go? Who do I need to make miss? And then he may drop the football. Someone punches it and it's just, oh crap. That's just not, he just doesn't have enough looks at it. So I hear you. I think there's maybe a time and place for it. I'm okay with opening it up, but maybe not outside of that. All right, I'm going to get out of here, man. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you for game night. All right, Lions, Cowboys. Let's go, baby. We need it. We need it. We got to find it. I'm going to get out of here, man. Yeah, we don't need that either. I wasn't going to say that, but we don't need that either. All right, I'm going to get out of here.